Well, besides the other stories from across the globe on xenophobia yesterday, one that also hugged the headlines closely was the floods in Lagos. And if you were out, you'd have been, a very, very real witness to what occurred. And so there are a lot of factors that have been fingered, but let's get right into it. And the Commissioner for the Environment in Lagos, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab, joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Wahab, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Now, I'm sure that you have read quite a number of the stories, and of course, there's a backstory to this. We've seen your engagement with the opposition on the environment in Lagos, and you have been tackled over the environment with reports that for the governor to have directed the evacuation of waste in Lagos, it means that there is a real endemic problem that speaks to the competence of your ministry. And we'd like your thoughts on that as we start off, as being fingered as what is responsible for the deluge that Lagos witnessed yesterday following the rains.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by situating the narrative so we don't muddle up the waters. The directive of the governor was basically to tell Loma, that's the ministry agency in charge of waste management, to ramp up and change the modus so that they can do a 24-hour cycle. And that is expected because I'm not one that will play the ostrich when it comes to realities. 3-4 months now, or before now, there were challenges. Those challenges were more of logistics and then challenges with the landfill. But nobody talks about the foundation of the problem. Loma had been working 24/7 now. No breaks, just moving the waste out. The foundation dates back to like 4-5 decades now. And that's about practice. When the practice had always been to pick and dump waste, linear waste system, we don't see waste as anything but waste. We just take the waste and we take them to the landfills. Oluchosun, for instance, and Solo Street, were at the outskirts of Lagos. We all came to meet Oluchosun here. He's been here for over 4 decades. But development came around Oluchosun. The same thing for Solo Street around Last Road, Igondo. And we had to say we can't sustain this practice. We can't sustain it because we must start seeing waste as a resource for power, a resource for wealth. That's energy or wealth. And that means we have to transit. And in transitioning, you also need to build an enduring foundation for it. So there won't be a cultural shock that will disrupt the system. So some months back, we unveiled the biodigester at the Ikosi Fruit Market, where fruit waste that used to block and clog the drainage system were now being converted to compost fertilizer and to also power the whole of the Ikosi Fruit Market. That was a pilot funded by C40 based on the roadmap we've shown them as a state. The bigger picture is we're transiting waste to wealth also by saying to harvest, to a company from West Africa, come and take 4,250 of our 13,000 municipal solid waste a day and convert some of it to recyclable plastics and some of it to compost fertilizer. And that is in the works. I was even there after the environmental sanction on Saturday. They're going to use Oluchosun as a transfer loading station for 2,500, and the material recovery facilities that will be at Ikorodu. This is ongoing. A company called Harvest Waste is also trying to move waste to power. That's about 2,500 or 2,000 or thereabouts.
These tons or something?
Yeah, a day. We generate 13,000 plus a day.
A day?
Yes. In May alone, I think we even do more than that. In May alone, the records show that Loma carted 418,500 metric tons of solid waste in that month, which comes to about 13,200 a day. I'm coming. I'm just trying to give you a foundation. So, logistics happened. I apologize on behalf of Loma and the state. And then the government said, you have to change your approach and increase your turnaround time. Some PSPs also were challenged, realistically, because their own people that they service don't want to pay. All over the world, waste management is polluter pay policy. You pay for what you use. But when people choose to free ride the system and don't want to pay, they take the waste from their homes, put them or dump them on the median. Some of them drop them in the drains in front of their houses. And that's the recipe. So by and large, what we experienced, the directive of the governor was Loma, ministry, work around your logistics, work around your turnaround time. And thankfully we've been doing that for the past few weeks. Are we there yet? I'll tell you no. But that is also not the reason for the flash flooding. So that's why I said we should not muddle up the water. People try to run away from the elephant in the room. And what's the elephant? The elephant in the room is Lagos is a coastal state. And we're exposed to the vagaries of climate change. We can't run away from it. Some parts of Lagos are below sea level. And once there's climate change, there's excessive rain, there's excessive heat, and there's tidal lock because there's a sea level rise. Once the sea level is up, your storm water naturally will not discharge. It will hold back for maybe 1 or 2 hours. And that's why we say to Lagosians, please don't panic. This water will recede within 1 or 2 hours. On our part, we've provided resilient infrastructure statewide, and we're still providing same. At times, it requires the state to remove people that are built on wetland and floodplains. People that choose to also be bigger than who they are because they see money before they see people and environment. I'll give you a practical instance. I'll give two. 2 years ago, we had to take a very tough decision to remove contraventions that were built on the right-of-way for Systems 1. Systems 1 is what you know as Oduyalaro, running from Ogba through the whole of Ikeja and terminates at the Lagos Lagoon. This system was gazetted in 1974 by the former Millard of Lagos, Brigadier General Mobolaji Johnson. 1970, that's 52 years ago. Gazetting it means protecting the right of way. We found out that people had gone to encroach willfully, most of them without approval. And this preceded my coming to office. My predecessor in office, Dr. Tuji Bello, had served them contravention notices, but he couldn't complete the circle. So when I came, we invited them. We served notices again that we are going to do this, and we are going to reestablish this right of way because we can't allow it. Areas that either were not flooding were now experiencing flood because of those things they've done. And some persons chose to politicize it. They dog-whistled us, they called us names, but thankfully we did the right thing for the overriding public interest. And today, if you go behind Sheraton, you see us, we've done the trapezoidal to protect that right of way. One of it terminates at where you have the new Opebi Link Bridge. The other one is terminating there too, just like a confluence. Then the main one goes into the lagoon. That's how to do it. Now, the second one is what happened yesterday. The government in the past 2 years, there's a drainage master plan for Lagos State, and we update it every 2 years. So 2 years ago, we realized there's a portion in Agungi called Ajiro Road. There's always water there. Yes, it's very close to the lagoon, but this was not justify why there should always be water, even when you have your normal dry season. So we found out, one, the level of the road and the drainage is lower than the houses. And then the houses had come to bring development to that corridor. So the volume. So we said, okay, let us now give them a bigger or a secondary collector that can discharge to the canal by Ebano and then terminates into the lagoon. That is ongoing. But we now found out some persons, land-owning families, had chosen to block the outlet, the total outlet. I was there on Sunday with the whole team. And when we got there, we realized painfully that they had extended their reclamation to even affect VGC, that is to the right. And we said, what we're going to do is, we're not disputing your ownership of your land. That's not my duty. However, I owe the people of Lagos State a duty to open up this channel that you have blocked by your illegal reclamation and dredging back into the lagoon and to the right into the Ikota River. So we asked the ministry officials to go there yesterday, or Monday and yesterday, with the swamp boogies to open up the channel, to ease up the pressure on their village. To our surprise, they had over 20 armed men in woods.
Armed men mean police?
Police and civil defense men on private land to start with. And they even detained government officials. So we were in the office in Alausa when the call came around the afternoon. I said, okay, PS, let's go and see what's happening here. And I went myself, because I'm not one that will shy away from my responsibility because I'm a public servant. And when I got there, I was surprised. But I'm going to thank the IG of police, who right there and then asked them questions, who sent them there, asked them to leave the place, and we had to commence our work. And that work will continue because we have not given them any approval. Because we are not going to give them the approval. We're not disputing their title. If you say you have a judgment over water, that now gives you the power to go and reclaim land and block everywhere. These are practical examples of what people on their own choose to do to destroy the system. So they'll say, government, what is government doing? Government went there to stop it. They choose to attack government. So if I had looked the other way, you can imagine what would have happened.
Two questions in one, Commissioner, because you've spoken for a long time. Yeah. We don't have so much of the luxury of time. So let me throw two questions, yes. and these are generic questions. Yes. You've established that there's a reality we must live in, which has to do with where Lagos is as a coastal state. Yes. So I always like to do those mappings and the inevitabilities that we'll deal with. What I mean by inevitability, if you choose to live in this part of Lagos, know that as at today, maybe tomorrow things will change. Know that anytime there is rain, you will suffer.
That's
what I'm trying to, so that you can bring that clarity as well. And then I always want to put blame on government in some, you've highlighted on some of these things and well articulated. But I'm always worried about, with technology available, why do we always wait for things to get to those points before we intervene?
Let me start with the second question. We've installed what we call early warning signs across the state on our waterways. And these are things that enables us to see the water level per second round the clock. Thanks to the government and the C40 group. We installed these, we are still going to install more. So we know when the sea level is up, when the water levels are up. That's technology. What we've also done differently is, we've also been able to interact with other government agencies that can also give us the information needed as at when due. NIMET is one of them. The Ogunshu River Basin Authority is another one. Because down channels, there's a channel, down. That water level will go up at a point in time this year. annually. Why? Because they have to release water from the dam, Onyun Dam. Without releasing the water, the dam will burst open, and there will be a major crisis for most of the southwest states. So, on our part, we've deployed technology. We're doing the needful. The second leg of your question is, must we always get flooded? I'll tell you no. But can we realistically, as a coastal state, avoid flash flooding? I'll tell you no. So what do? There must be a balance. We must mitigate the impact of our realities. That is, as a coastal state, abutted on the south by 186 kilometers of the Atlantic, a third of our land is water. We are 3,557 square kilometers of land. A third of it is water, which makes it a bit complicated. And then we are just 0.4% of the country's land mass, but we are housing 10% of the country's population. So there will not be a battle between the environment and urbanization. People want to do reclamation, but reclamation on what basis? Must you do it without approvals? And you start blaming government? If people go and build, for instance, without fiscal planning approval, without town planning approvals, without environment impact assessments, without drainage clearance, and the government says, no, you can't, we have to remove this. The same people will start abusing government that, you're wicked. But it's overriding public interest. That's a bigger picture. So, to your question, I won't say we must always get flooded, no. But realistically, we can't run away from flash flooding. However, we as a people should not exasperate this situation by our own conduct. One of those conducts, you take your waste from your home in a fanciful vehicle as an elite, and you go to dump that waste on the media.
Which is what I want to address, Honorable Commissioner.
Yeah.
I know that you have talked about, I'm glad you talked about the elephant in the room,
yes.
Being, Lagos being a coastal state. But don't you think that it would be a bit unfair if you ascribed it to a foundation? Because if we refer to recent history, at least under former Governor Babatunde Fashola, there was a culture that worked. Lagos was not this landscape of piles and piles of waste. So at that time, there was a culture that worked. As a matter of fact, if you visited public places, there were refuse boxes, that had categories, but we haven't seen that sustenance of that culture over time in Lagos, which is why perhaps you hear commentaries from residents and from visitors to Lagos, especially during Dirty December, that Lagos smells. So why, and many must ask, why that culture hasn't been sustained, and which has also led to clogged canals and drainages that have contributed, we shouldn't excuse that, contributed to the floods that we witness every rainy season.
Okay. Thank you very much. And you see, I say this, there must be a dominant culture in any society. Months ago, when we chose to reintroduce the monthly environmental sanitation, people that should know better were the ones taunting and throwing around some arguments that we're trying to infringe on the fundamental human rights. Under Governor Fashola, there was sanitation. That was a culture that was going on for years. But it was truncated along the way. And once you truncate, to bring it back takes a while. You need to build consensus. That's what we're doing. I don't make excuses. And I will not want to start making those excuses now. Once we truncated it in 2016, we reversed the gains. And that's what we're trying to now bring back to have a dominant culture. Secondly, Lagos has grown exponentially beyond what it was between 2007 and 2015. Lagos had grown exponentially, and you also know that. But that's not an excuse. What we can not do is throw our hands up and surrender to the whims of people that don't want to comply. Lagos is a state governed by laws. Look, you gave 2 instances, waste bins. Even where there are waste bins, dino bins, some persons choose to do the other thing. How do you rationalize it? That's why I've asked this question severally. People come to the median of the express here.
But responsibility is a two-way street. What was the difference in the management of the waste management system?
I'm coming.
And now?
You asked the question,
yeah.
So I'm going to answer your question. They come to the median and they openly defecate. And then you have over 1,730 public toilets. I've not added the ones from eateries and others to it. How do you rationalize that? That's a question for you to ponder on. Now to your second question of responsibilities. The government has a duty and a role to play. And for Governor Fashola, it was more of law and order. Without caring who sucks is God. And he was very firm and decisive. We're being firm and decisive today, and they choose to call us names. That's it. But are we going to throw the baby away with the bathwater because we are afraid of them calling us names? No. So we have to take very tough decisions. We brought back environmental sanitation. We're moving and transiting from a linear waste system. We also say to Loma, you also need to be up and doing. Are they challenged logistically? Yes, we know. Wolusosun should not be there by now. That's why we can't also decommission without opening up the other flanks. And we've opened them up in Ekpe and Badagry. But you should not open them up because we want to do pick and dump. You should open them up for the transition to work from waste to wealth. And that's why the 2 material recovery facilities, one will be in Ekpe, and one will be in Ikorodu, one will be at Badagry. So Solus 3 will be a transfer loading station for 1,500 metric tons of waste a day that will cater for the Badagry material recovery facility. While Olusosun, when the commission will just have a transfer loading station that will move the waste 2,500 plus to the Ikorodu material recovery facility. That converts waste to wealth. Now, moving forward also, government have said we need to increase capacity for Loma. They're bringing in about 140 or 150 new compactors. Those will not come overnight. But we have to support Loma. Also, we've said to the PSP operators, in fairness to them, when people are not paying for waste, and these people are in business, how do you expect them to grow that business and serve it? These are issues that we are not talking about. On our part, we capped the rates for them in 2022. We are having conversations now to open up the rates so they can be fairly treated. Diesel had gone up exponentially between 2022 and now. They have to service their own trucks. They have to pay salaries. These are issues that we are addressing at the back end, which was why I said to Lagosians, we are sorry for the past 3 months. There were challenges, but we have to take the bull by the horn. Okay.
We're totally out of time. It's an ongoing conversation. Great ideas, but the most important thing, I always say, efforts are commendable. Result is what people will actually celebrate. But like you talked about, and some of the ideas that has been brought up, we'll continue to follow up. Bukola, totally out of time.
Yes, indeed. We still have a place to touch. I would have wanted to explore also the concern about waste to wealth and how that program is progressing. I wonder if you can do that for us in 60 seconds.
We're totally out of time.
Okay, let me do it in 60 seconds. What we've done is they have a 150-day window to complete what they are doing, and they are using a part of Olusosun, which was what we had to go and visit on Saturday. And the projection is if they can start it by the end of this year, take away 4,250 metric tons of waste a day, convert it to wealth, compost fertilizer, and recyclable plastics. The plastics we want to start giving Lagosians to build a waste culture. Because waste itself, you must build a culture for it. So we'll start giving them for free in buses, at homes, and everything. So we start seeing how they respond to that on the long run and on the long term.
All right, we hope that that culture comes through because that's the foundation of it. But we must thank you very much, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab is the Commissioner for Environment in Lagos. Thank you for coming on the morning brief.
Thanks.
And so, what are some of your talking points on social media as we close now? Jeffrey, you have this one.
All right, let's begin with on the celebratory notes that Channels Television just won the Media Leadership Prize at the Lagos Enterprise and Excellence Award 2026. Well, you know, we won a couple of things, but we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll bring you details of this. Stay with us.